Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel. This is Stitched Up. How are you all doing? Have you all had a really good week? I've had a really busy week and I finished work this morning and thought I would come on and do a pattern review and tell you all about this dress that I have made this week. So this is one of the plans that I had for July in my July plans vlog. Surprisingly, I will put a link to it up here for you to go and check that out if you've missed it. And I had so many things that I wanted to sew in July, and I really don't know if I'm going to get half of them done at this rate, to be perfectly honest. But I thought I would tackle it this month with some of the more complex makes first, or what I thought would be the more complex makes. So I started with this dress, which I cut out and took up to Sew Toon with me last weekend, where I worked on it alongside my lovely Northern Soul sisters, Ruan and Tamlin, and lovely Adam was up there as well from Adam Sews, which was wonderful to see him again. And also Alison from Sew Like Dotty. It was great. We had a really good time, but I made a start on this dress and I finished it this week. So the pattern is Trend Patterns TPC 14, which is their 70s dress. And this is the pattern here. So I have made a sleeveless version, which, there we go, there's my arms. And it's basically a gorgeous dress. Let me show you the line drawings. Gorgeous tiered dress with a big ruffle that goes all the way around the back to the front. It's got covered shoulders. You can have sleeves or sleeveless, and then it's got a front neck fastening here that you can either fasten with a tie or a hook and eye. And it's got a side zip, side invisible zip. It is gathered into the waist. There's a little bit of gathering. There's no darts, and it has a centre front seam with a little sort of opening just here that's not too low. It's not too cleavage-tastic, this one. And I absolutely love it. I am going to insert some footage for you, probably some photographs and maybe a little bit of video as well. It just depends because I need to go outside and it's really windy today and we keep having storms and showers. So I'll try and get out there in between the storms and the showers and the wind and the rain to be able to take some nice pictures for you so that you can see this dress in movement. But it's a beautiful dress, absolutely beautiful, and I am in love. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about the pattern first before I show you my version. The reason I was drawn to this was after having seen the lovely Jen, who is Jen Leg Tees Creative, I think, on Instagram. She made a version of this, a sleeveless version, a while ago. She's just made another actually this week, and it was stunning. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, that is going to fulfill all my boho dreams, and I wanted to make it. So I picked this pattern up, I think, at the Knitting and Stitching show, and it's been on the radar since, and it was, as I say, it's one of my plans for July. Now, it rates the difficulty rating as easy to moderate. I would disagree that this is an easy pattern. And the reason I say that is there is a little bit of fitting involved, as in you have to really think about the shoulders and how it fits across the bust and the waist, etc. But also there is an awful lot of ruffles, gathers, etc. in this dress. And if that's new to you, then it's going to take a little bit of working out. The other thing I would say as well is, because I made the sleeveless version, excuse me for the armpit shot here, this side where the zip is, you have to leave open when you attach the ruffle, and trying to look at where you attach the underarm seams to the ruffle before you attach the shoulders. There are notches all the way around, but they tend to disappear because of all the gathering that is encased in this big ruffle. So yeah, it was a little bit awkward. What I ended up having to do was to attach the ruffle to the shoulder pieces first, and then sort of halve it and quarter it and then attach it to the bodice. And for when I did it that way, I got the correct alignment for the open underarm seams, if that makes sense. So I did it slightly different to what the pattern instructions told me to do. So for that reason, I would not class this as an easy pattern. And I think that if you are a beginner and you want to make a dress like this, choose something that's a little bit more straightforward without all these extra details on. Go for a tiered ruffled dress, absolutely, to learn the techniques for gathering and you know, that kind of thing and attaching tiers, but I would choose something a little less fussy, shall we say, for your first one. So I would describe this more of a moderate to advanced pattern. That's just me. You know, I've been sewing about 10 years now, and yeah, it did leave me just really thinking about things before I could properly get this dress as I wanted it to be. The fabric choices it describes are light to medium weight woven fabrics. You don't want anything with stretching, although you can use something with mechanical stretch or a little bit of, you know, you can get stretch viscoses, for instance. And I don't mean the viscose jerseys, I mean, like, you know, you can get viscose with a tiny little bit of stretching, or a stretch linen viscose, that type of fabric. The fabric I have gone for is Lakeside Blooms by Lady McElroy. It's absolutely stunning. This is called a Chloe Chambray, which is one of their linen viscose bases. They do have a couple of others as well. There's a Trudy Chambray, which is a linen viscose, and then I can't remember the name of the other one. But this is a Chloe Chambray. It's gorgeous. It's got the right amount of linen in and the right amount of viscose, so you still get that drape and swooshiness, but a little bit of weight to the fabric, so it really can hold a dress like this with lots of weight to it, with all the gathers and the tiers, and was perfect for this dress. I love this design. It's one of their new summer designs, and it's absolutely beautiful to work with. It behaves itself as well, which obviously you can make this dress out of a viscose, which is going to be a little bit more shifty. So, you know, if you are wanting to attempt this dress, if you think you've got the experience or the skills to attempt it, I would go for something like this that is going to be a bit weightier than viscose, and is just going to behave itself a little bit easier for you. You could use a cotton lawn as well. I would absolutely use a cotton lawn for this dress. It's going to give you a little bit more structure and a little bit more body, but you know, I would absolutely use it. I think it would be perfect for this particular design. Fabric wise, it recommends, well, I mean, it only gives you a basis on a size 22. The size of this pattern goes from a size 6 to a 22 in the paper pattern. I'm not sure about PDF. I think you can get this on a PDF version. I don't know if it has a bigger size range on that, but what I will do is I will link to it down in the description box below so you can go and check it out. The bust measurement for the size 6 is, it's all in centimetres, so it's 80 centimetres up to 120 centimetres for the size 22. The waist is 62 up to 105, and then the hips is 89 up to 127. However, the hip measurement is not really necessary because obviously it's a big floaty skirt. Finished measurements, I'm just digging out the instruction book, which looks like this. It doesn't actually give you the finished measurements for the size 6, which I find a little bit odd. The finished measurements go from a size 8 to a 22, so I don't know why they've missed out the size 6, but anyway. The measurements for the size 8 for the finished garment are a 90 centimetre bust, and for the 22 is 125 centimetres. The waist 69 up to 104. I went for the size 12, which is a bust of 100 centimetres, and the 14 was bust of 105 centimetres for the finished garment, and that equates to 39 3/4 to 41 inch. My full bust is about 38.5 inches at the minute, and I wanted just a little bit more ease than what is in the size 12, so I did go for the size 14, and I've got plenty of room in it. It's absolutely spot on for me. Now, it gives you fabric amount recommendations only for the size 22, which again is a little bit strange, but anyway, and it recommends you need 4.4 meters of 140 centimeter wide fabric for the size 22. Now, I don't think you would get this out of narrower width fabric. You know, some fabrics are sort of like 110 centimeters, 120, that kind of thing. I think you'd struggle with it because of the ruffles. I managed to get this dress out of 4 meters. I only had 4 meters of this fabric, and I managed to get it all out of it with scraps. But the bottom tier, I did have to piece a couple of those together, which is fine. The pattern is busy enough and you can't see it amongst the drape of the tiers, so that was absolutely fine. What I actually wanted to do, because this ruffle, as you can see, is not double faced, and that's as the pattern tells you to construct it. I prefer a double faced ruffle on the whole because I just think it looks better, and when the wind blows your ruffle you see the reverse side. However, I think for this particular pattern I can get away with it because the only place there is a ruffle is around the neckline and it's all sort of pointing downwards. So I'm hoping, apart from days like today, when I wear it, it's not going to blow up so much, so you're not really going to see the underside of it, not as you would if it was sort of over a shoulder. So at the end of the day, as I say, I didn't have enough fabric to do a double-faced ruffle, so I had to go with what I had. But yeah, I absolutely love it. Now, the other thing that I found as well is I could not find what height trend patterns draft for, and it really, really frustrates me that pattern designers are still not doing this and not picking this up. I know I harp on about it a lot, but it is a massive bugbear of mine. For all pattern designers that are trying to jump on the size inclusivity and increasing and expanding their size range, they really aren't, you know, still not designing for those of us that are very short in stature and those of us that are very tall. And there are a number of pattern companies that still don't make it easy for you to find what height they draft for so that you can make adjustments accordingly. And I couldn't find anything telling me what trend patterns design for when it comes to height. I'm 5'10", and on the whole with most patterns I tend to have to add an inch to bodice pieces, and then whatever I need to add to the length of skirts if it's a dress to get the length that I want. Now this is designed to be a maxi dress, and when I looked at the pattern pieces I actually thought, you know, I think I can get away with the length in total of the depth of each of the tiers for this pattern and what they will become as they're constructed. And so all I added to this pattern was an inch to the bodice pieces to make sure that the waist, when the bodice was constructed, hit me on my natural waist, which it does. If I stand up now and show you, I've got a little gold belt on with this because there is a little bit of ease. As I say, there's a fair bit of ease in this, and I wanted to cinch it in to make sure it just really pulls in at my smallest part. But yeah, the waist seam is there, which is hitting me on my natural waist, which is awesome. However, when I had made this dress, I looked at it on my mannequin, and I made my mannequin the same height that I am, and found that it was just trailing on the floor. It was enormous in length. So I tried it on, and yeah, it was just far too long. So I don't know what height this dress is drafted for, but I would say something around the realms of 6'2", seriously, because yeah, I only added an inch to the bodice. I added nothing to the tiers, and the skirt is very long. So because it's a 3-tiered skirt, it wasn't as easy to just think, well, I'll hack a few inches off the bottom of the skirt, because then it would distort the placement of each of the 3 tiers. The way this is drafted, if you look at the pattern, is that each of the tiers are more or less the same depth. I think the top tier is slightly shorter than the bottom two. And if I'd have just cut off a great big chunk of the bottom, I'd have ended up with the top and middle tier of the right sort of depth, and then the bottom tier would have been like a little ruffle, and it might have looked a bit odd. It certainly would have completely destroyed the design of this particular dress. So what I had to do, because obviously I'd already constructed it by this point, is I re-sewed the seams between the top and the middle tier and between the middle and the bottom tier, and I took off an inch from each of those tiers and redid those seams. Then I tried it on again and looked at what I needed to remove from the bottom tier, and it was probably about 2 inches. So in total I have taken 4 inches from this dress, and it now hits me just above my ankles, which is probably about right. So just bear that in mind, that this is a super long pattern. And with that in mind, what makes me slightly irked now is that if I had done that right at the beginning, I probably would have had enough to fully face this ruffle because of the amount that I took off. So I need to make those adjustments to my traced pattern, because I have traced this. I never cut into my indie patterns at all because they're so expensive. And yeah, afterwards, if you want to make any other adjustments and you've already cut the pattern, I always trace them. But that's just me. Obviously, you do you. But I need to go back to my traced pattern pieces and just make those adjustments because I will be making this pattern again. What I would say is the size 14 fits me over the shoulders absolutely perfectly. There's no pulling at all across the front or across the back. I decided to use a hook and eye to fasten it around the neck, and the neck and the armholes are finished with bias binding. Now, the one thing that I would change for future iterations of this pattern is that I would line the shoulder pieces. They aren't lined and they're just overlocked on the seams on the underside, but I would line them for next time rather than the bias binding. I did find the instructions for this front little piece here that it didn't really tell you what to do. It didn't make sense, and I ended up, when I'd got the raw edge here, I ended up just folding it over twice and top stitching down. Yeah, I couldn't follow what it was telling me to do. I think that's what it was telling me to do, but it didn't feel like a very good finish. The finish is fine. As I say, I've bias bound it with pre-bought bias binding because I bought it while I was at First for Fabrics last week. I just bought a length of the orange bias binding, mainly because I didn't have enough fabric left at that point to be able to make my own bias binding out of the main fabric. And I mean, obviously with hindsight, I would have had, but at the time I didn't, and I was working on the body. So I just bought some pre-bought cotton bias binding and used that to bind the neckline and then bind the armholes as well. It's got the same in there, and that's absolutely fine. I would say the armholes are quite high. There is no difference between the armholes whether you are attaching the sleeve or not. And usually there is. So if you have a pattern that has sleeves and you have a sleeveless version of it, the depth of the arm side generally is different. So just again, bear that in mind. I was a little bit worried because I've got quite chunky upper arms at the moment. I will say I've got the old bingo wing thing going on as I'm getting older. And I was a bit worried that I would not get my arm through this armhole. So all I'm saying is if you have, a fair bit of fleshy upper arm thing going on, just bear that in mind, that the depth of this arm side here is not very deep. Certainly nowhere near my bra strap. My bra strap comes down here, so there's plenty of room to lower that if you wanted to create a bit of extra room. All in all, those were the main points I would say about this pattern. The other thing that I didn't like as well, we've already discussed the fact that I prefer a double-faced ruffle because of this going on. But the instructions tell you to obviously just do one ruffle, and then it tells you, obviously the ruffle is open at the front because of the way the opening needs to be to get it on and off over your head. And it tells you to finish this by just folding over the raw seams like so. If I bring it closer and show you there, and then stitching it down. And I think that always looks a little bit messy, if I'm perfectly honest. So I did a mitered corner. I don't know if you can see that very well. I will show you on this one, but I'll bring it closer. And if you can see there, I've done a mitered corner finish so that it just looks a little bit neater. What I'm planning to do is I have just launched a new series called Top Tip Tuesdays, which I'm blown away by how much you all seem to love the episode that I uploaded on Tuesday this week, and I'm planning on doing this as another tutorial for you, so that if you, like me, don't have enough fabric to be able to double face your ruffle, I mean, you wouldn't need to worry about the finish on this if you had enough fabric and you were double facing. But if you find you're doing something like this and you haven't got enough and you want a really nice neat finish on an open part of a seam, it would be good for side splits as well on a skirt or a top, that kind of thing, rather than just folding over and folding over again and creating that real big bulky area that doesn't look that great. You can do a mitered finish like this and it looks really nice. So I'm going to do that as a Top Tip Tuesday, maybe this week, maybe the week after. I haven't decided yet, but that will be coming up soon, so I'll be able to show you how I achieved that. But yeah, I really like it. I would say it's true to size, as in the measurements and the finished measurements, etc. I would say, you know, it is true to size. It's just the height thing is, oh, yeah. I will say I've had a couple of conversations with Jen over the dresses that she's made, because she's just made another gorgeous version out of silk. It's amazing. I would urge you to go and look on Instagram. She's talked a lot about the process of constructing hers on her stories, and we've had a bit of a back and forth conversation about this dress. And she mentioned as well, she's quite tall, but not as tall as me. I think she's a couple of inches shorter than me, and she mentioned that she found it super long as well, so she's had to make some big adjustments to that for her second version. And yeah, it is a big bugbear of mine. So any indies that are out there watching me, I don't know if you are, but if you are, please put it in your every pattern that you produce. Just stick it somewhere, like you put the seam allowance in on the measurements chart. Please put what height you draft for. It would help us out so much. Anyway, I think I've waffled enough. I don't think there's anything else really that I can say about it. It came together really well. I have, on the whole, done French seams on most of my seams. In fact, I think I did do that on the underside of here, actually. Yes, I did. And me saying that I'd overlocked them, completely lying to you, I did French seam them. So I have French seamed everything inside as well, because I think that gives you a really nice finish too, doesn't it? And yeah, I am definitely going to make this again, because I really like it. It's just a gorgeous dress. Does feel quite dressy. I don't know if I'd make the long sleeve version. I think that might just be a touch too much for me. But as a sleeveless version, a sleeveless dress, I love it. So I hope you enjoy the little bit of footage that I'm going to put in now of me wearing it. And let me know down in the comments below what you think. And yeah, I'd be really keen to hear what you think to my gorgeous new dress. So take care of yourselves, and I will be back with you on Tuesday with the next instalment of Top Tip Tuesday. Take care. Bye bye.